I tell you directly, your mind is not a solid reality, but a chaotic stream of thoughts moving so fast that it creates a total illusion of existence. Your so-called society has deeply conditioned you to survive on lies and tomorrow's false promises, turning your present moment into an absolute hell. You desperately think you are normal, but this collective conditioning is nothing but a pathological madness. If you continue to cling to your desires and pull your own shoelaces to find peace, your mental exhaustion will drive you completely insane. You must drop the ego right now, step out of this trap, and become a silent witness to save your sanity. Hello, my friend, welcome. It is beautiful that you are here, sitting with me in this quiet space, away from the roaring noise of the world outside. I can see the exhaustion in your eyes. I can feel the trembling in your heart. And I know exactly why you are here. You have come to me because you feel as if you are losing your grip, as if the walls of your own mind are closing in on you, and you are on the very verge of going completely mad. Before you allow that madness to take over, before you let the chaos swallow you whole, I want you to stop, take a deep breath, and just listen to me. Do not just hear my words mechanically, but listen with your heart, listen with your total being, because what we are going to unfold together today is not a philosophy to be memorized, but a medicine to save your sanity. If my voice touches something deep within your sleeping soul today, I invite you to leave a reflection of your heart in the comments below. Share this stream of silence with another searching traveler and subscribe to our channel so that we can continue to walk this path of awakening together. And if you feel a deep call to support our spiritual commune, to keep these recordings flowing to the ends of the earth, you can natively use the join button on your interface to become a member, or offer your gratitude through super thanks, or explore the digital library of our ebooks that we have prepared for your inner journey. Let all of this happen naturally as a spontaneous gesture of love, while we dive deep into the ultimate mystery of your inner being. You feel like you are going mad because you do not understand the very nature of the mechanism you are carrying inside your head. You think that the mind is a substantial thing, a solid reality, a concrete entity that you are trapped inside. This is your first and most fundamental mistake. The mind is not a thing, but an event. A thing has a substance in it. A rock has a substance in it. But an event is just a process, a phenomenon, a movement. The mind is like a wave in the ocean. It exists, but it has no independent substance of its own. It is just an event born out of the friction between the wind of desires and the vast ocean of your consciousness. When the wind blows hard, the waves become ferocious, chaotic, terrifying, and you look at those waves and you think that they are going to crush you. But if the wind stops, where does the wave go? It disappears without leaving a single trace behind, not even a footprint. Those who have awakened, those who have gone beyond the boundaries of human psychology, say that the mind is like a bird flying into the sky. It leaves no path, no footprints behind. In fact, the mind does not exist at all. Only individual thoughts exist. But these thoughts are moving so fast, with such a tremendous speed, that they create the optical illusion of continuity. It is exactly like a single point of fire being whirled around very fast in the dark. If you whirl it fast enough, you will see a solid circle of fire. But in reality, there is no circle. There is only a single point of fire moving rapidly. One thought comes, another thought comes, another thought comes, and they go on in a relentless procession. The gap between one thought and another is so incredibly small that your unalert, sleeping eyes cannot see it. Because you cannot see the gap, the two thoughts become joined in your perception. They become a continuity. And because of that false continuity, you believe that something called the mind exists. There are thoughts, but there is no mind, just as there are individual electrons. But there is no matter. Thoughts are nothing but the electrons of your inner space. It is like a crowd. A crowd exists in one sense, but it does not exist in another. Only individual people exist, but many individuals standing together give the illusion of a single entity called a crowd. A nation exists and exists not. There are only individual human beings. The moment you look deeper into the mind simply disappears. Then you are left with individual thoughts. And when you realize that there are only individual thoughts and no solid mind, many things are immediately solved. For the first time, you attain to a crystal clear perception that thoughts are just like clouds floating in the sky. They come from nowhere, they pass through you, and they go to nowhere, and you are the vast, infinite, unpolluted sky. When there is no mind, immediately the realization comes that you are no longer involved in the thoughts. They are passing through you because you are a vast emptiness, an infinitely open space. No wall exists to prevent them. No boundary exists to hold them back. You are not a walled phenomenon. Your inner sky is completely open. But because you are asleep, you get identified with every cloud that passes. A dark cloud of anger comes, and instead of watching it as a witness, you jump into it. You become the cloud and you say, I am angry. A grey cloud of sadness comes, and you wrap it around yourself and you say, I am miserable. A terrifying cloud of anxiety comes, and you begin to tremble and you say, I am going mad. This identification is your bondage. This identification is your insanity. We are all living in a deep mountainous illusion, an illusion of hope, of future, of tomorrow. As man is right now, he cannot exist without constant self-deception. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote that man cannot live with the naked truth. He needs dreams, he needs illusions, he needs beautiful lies just to exist. And Nietzsche was absolutely right about the ordinary human mind. As you are, you cannot face the real, because the real shatters all your fabrications. You are not only dreaming in the night while you sleep, even while you are awake, a continuous current of dreaming goes on within you. You may be looking at me, you may be listening to my voice, but an undercurrent of fantasies, images, and projections is continuously moving inside your head. The human mind feeds on dreams. It cannot live in the present moment because the present moment is the death of the mind. The present is almost always a hell for you, a state of deep discontent, of boredom, of inner pain. And you can endure this hell today only because of the hope that you have projected into tomorrow. You live today only because of the promise of tomorrow. You are hoping that something miraculous is going to happen tomorrow, that the doors of paradise will finally open for you tomorrow. But those doors never open today, and when tomorrow comes, it never comes as tomorrow. It always comes as today. By the time it arrives as today, your tricky mind has already moved ahead, jumping into another tomorrow. This is what dreaming means. You go on moving ahead of yourself. You go on jumping ahead of your own being. You have named this tomorrow, this false future, in many ways. Some people call it wealth, some people call it power, some people call it heaven, and some people call it liberation or enlightenment. But whatsoever you call it, if it is in the future, it is a dream, it is a self-deception. You are wasting the only reality you have, which is the here and now, for that which does not exist at all. To be just in the moment seems to be the most arduous thing for the human mind. The mind can be in the past, because the past is a memory, a collection of dead words, which is a perfect playground for dreams. Or the mind can be in the future, which is nothing but the dead past projected again, refined, polished, and painted in brighter colors. Your future is never new. It is just your past experienced through the window of your desires. You cannot think of anything other than what you have already known. So your future is just a modified repetition of your past. Both future and past do not exist. Only the present is, but you are never in the present. This is why you feel like you are going mad, because you are constantly trying to live in a house made of cards, a house made of ghosts, a house that does not exist. No one wants to see the naked reality as it is, and you can enter on the path of yoga, which is the pure science of the soul, only when you are totally, absolutely frustrated with your own mind as it is. If you are still hoping that your mind can give you something in the future, if you are still hoping that through your mind you will find happiness, then yoga is not for you. A total frustration is needed, a complete disillusionment with the mechanism of the mind. You must come to a point where you can see with absolute clarity that the mind that projects is futile, the mind that hopes is absolute nonsense, and it leads you nowhere but into deeper dark holes of misery. The mind simply closes your eyes, intoxicates you like a heavy drug, protects you against reality, and never allows the truth to be revealed to you. Your mind is an artificial drug, and you can enter into the true path of discipline only if you are totally hopeless, if you have dropped all your expectations unconditionally. Many people become interested in meditation, but very few people actually enter it, because their interest is still created by the achieving motive of the mind. They come to me and they say, Osho, we want to learn meditation so that we can find peace, so that we can find bliss, so that we can reach the ultimate divine. The achieving motive is there, the hope is there, the greed is there. They are looking at meditation as a new commodity to be purchased in the marketplace of the future. If this is your motive, then there can be no meeting between you and the path of meditation, because you are moving in a totally opposite dimension. Meditation means now no hope, now no future, now no desires. I am ready to know what is here and now. I am no longer interested in what can be, what should be, what ought to be. I am interested only in the naked reality as it is, because only the real can free you. Only reality can become your ultimate liberation. Total despair is needed, the despair that Buddha called dukkha. If you are really in misery, do not use hope as a drug to prolong that misery. Your hope helps you to continue dragging your dead life. But where are you moving? Your hopes are leading you only towards death and nowhere else. When a moment comes to a human being, when he feels an absolute total hopelessness, when absolute meaninglessness happens to him, when he becomes fully aware that whatsoever he is doing is completely useless, wheresoever he is going to nowhere, then all his false hopes drop. The future drops, the past drops, and for the very first time in his life, he is in perfect tune with the present. For the very first time, he is face to face with the naked reality. Unless this moment of total hopelessness comes to you, you can go on practicing postures, you can go on doing breathing exercises, you can go on changing your clothes, but you will not enter into the true discipline of yoga. Yoga is an inward turning, a total about turn. When you are no longer moving into the future, when you are no longer escaping into the past, then your energy has nowhere to go outside, and it automatically starts moving within your own being. Your being is present here and now. It is not in the tomorrow. This exact historical moment of absolute inner crisis is indicated by the great master Patanjali in his very first sutra, Atha Yoganushasanam. Now the discipline of yoga. Each single word used by Patanjali has to be understood very deeply, because a scientific mind like Patanjali's does not use a single superfluous word. He is not a poet like Krishna. He is not a moralist like Mahavira. He is a rigorous mathematician of the inner space, an Einstein in the world of Buddhas. He gives you maxims that are as exact as any mathematical formula. He says, now the discipline of yoga. This word now indicates the exact state of mind, where all your options have fallen dead, where you are in total anguish, suffering, not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go, just on the very verge of madness or suicide, when your whole pattern of life has suddenly been revealed to you as an absolute exercise in futility. If this moment has come to your life, then Patanjali says, now the discipline of yoga. Only now can you understand this science, never before. If that moment has not arrived, you can study scriptures, you can become a great scholar, you can write beautiful theses on meditation, you can deliver magnificent discourses, but you will remain an ordinary, unawakened human being. You will not be a yogi. Intellectually, you may be related to the concept, but meditation is nothing if it is not an inner discipline. It is not a matter of curiosity. It is not a matter of philosophical speculation. It is a critical question of life and death. If the moment has come when all directions have become confused, when all roads have disappeared from your sight, when the future looks dark and every desire has turned bitter, then, now, the discipline of yoga. Everyone will say that they are dissatisfied with life, but their dissatisfaction is not real. It is not total. You are dissatisfied with this particular thing or that particular person, but you are not dissatisfied with the mind itself. You are still hoping that if you change your job, if you change your house, if you change your wife, or if you find a new religion, you will become happy. Your dissatisfaction is not total. You are still hankering for some satisfaction somewhere in the future. Sometimes you feel hopeless, but that hopelessness is phony because you feel hopeless only because certain specific hopes have failed, but the habit of hoping is still alive. It has not fallen away. You are disappointed with this hope or that hope, but you are not disappointed with hope as such. If you are disappointed with hope as such, then the real now has happened in your life, and only then can you enter into the true discipline. What is this discipline? Discipline means creating an order within your inner space. As you are right now, you are not an individual, you are a complete chaos, a disorderly crowd. George Gurdjieff used to say that man is not one, he is many. There is no single I in you. There are many small petty egos inside you, fighting with each other for power. In the morning, one ego sits on the throne and promises something. In the afternoon, another ego takes over and forgets all about the promise. And in the evening, a third ego rules and behaves in a totally different way. But you never become aware of this inner mess because there is no center in you that can watch this entire drama objectively. You are like a house where the host is always absent and all the servants are claiming to be the master. Because you are a crowd, you cannot even fulfill a simple promise. You decide today that starting tomorrow morning, you will get up early at 4 o'clock to meditate. At 4 o'clock in the morning, someone inside you wakes up and says, "Why bother? It is so cold outside and sleep is so beautiful. We can do it tomorrow." And you fall asleep again. When you wake up at 8 o'clock, another ego takes the chair and starts repenting. "Oh, this is not good. I am a failure. I must try again tomorrow." This rotation goes on continuously, and every moment someone else is the master. Gurdjieff said that the chief characteristic of an ordinary human being is that he cannot promise, he cannot fulfill a vow, because he's a disorder, a chaos. Therefore, Patanjali says, now the discipline of yoga, if your life has become an absolute misery because of this inner civil war, then this moment can change your entire dimension, your entire direction of being. Yoga means that now you have to become a harmony. You have to become a single individual. A crystallization is needed, a centering is needed, and unless you attain to a center, all that you do is an absolute waste of life and time. A center is the first and most fundamental necessity for any bliss to happen, because a crowd cannot be blissful. Bliss means absolute, profound silence, and that silence is possible only when there is perfect harmony within you, when all the discordant fragments of your mind have melted into one single stream of consciousness. When you are alone in your inner house, when all the guests have gone and only the host is present, then a great bliss arises. This centering, this crystallization is what Patanjali calls discipline, Anushasanam. This word discipline is incredibly beautiful. It comes from the same root as the word disciple. Discipline means the capacity to learn, the capacity to know. But you cannot learn, you cannot know unless you have attained to the capacity to be. An ordinary man has no capacity to be. He is just a trembling, a hectic activity, a constant movement. All your yoga postures, all the asanas are not really concerned with physical training. They are deeply concerned with developing your inner capacity to be. Patanjali says, if you can sit silently without moving your body even a single inch for a few hours, you are growing in your capacity to be. Look at your body. You cannot sit silently even for a few seconds. Your body starts twitching. Somewhere you feel an itching sensation. Your legs go dead. Many things start happening. These are nothing but the tricks of the mind to force you into movement, because the mind knows that if the body becomes absolutely still, the mind will have to become still too. Mind and body are not two separate things. They are two poles of the same organic phenomenon. You are not body and mind, you are a single body-mind. Your personality is completely psychosomatic. Mind is the subtle part of the body, and body is the gross part of the mind. Whatsoever happens in the body affects the mind, and whatsoever happens in the mind immediately manifests in the body. If your body is completely non-moving, if you can attain to a perfectly still posture and say to the body, keep quiet, the mind will suddenly find itself in a state of deep silence. In a non-moving body, the mind cannot move. It needs a moving body to sustain its chattering. When your body is perfectly still, your mind becomes still. And in that still moment, you are centered. This non-moving posture creates the exact situation in which centering can happen, in which you can become truly disciplined. And when you are centered, when you know what it means to be, then you become humble, then you become receptive, then all your false, petty egos drop away, because you know that they are completely illusions. In that centering, a true disciple is born. To become a disciple is a magnificent achievement. Only through discipline do you become a disciple, and only when you are a disciple can a master pour his total being into your emptiness. In your silence, in your emptiness, the master can reach you, and a deep communication becomes possible. A disciple is one who is centered, humble, receptive, open, alert, waiting, and deeply prayerful. In the science of yoga, the master is absolutely essential, because only when you are in the close physical and spiritual proximity of a being who is already centered can your own centering catch fire. This is the real meaning of the ancient word satsang. Satsang does not mean listening to a lecture or reading a book. Satsang means being in the close proximity of the truth, being near a master who has become one with the absolute reality. You just sit near him, open, receptive, and silently waiting. If your waiting becomes deep, intense, and thoughtless, a profound communion happens between your being and the Master's being. The Master does not need to do anything. He is simply there, available, overflowing like a mighty river. If you are empty like a vessel, open and ready, His energy will automatically flow into you. This flowing of energy from the centered being of the Master into the empty being of the disciple is what satsang is all about. The Master may use words, he may talk about Patanjali's sutras, but that talk is just an excuse to keep your head occupied. While your logical head is busy listening to the words, your heart can open up on a much deeper level, and a silent meeting can happen. That wordless meeting is the real satsang, and everything else is just a device to find ways to be close to the Master. Closeness is everything, but only a true disciple can be close, because an ordinary man lives in constant fear. He maintains a territory around himself, a strict security measure to protect his false ego. He never allows anyone to enter his inner space because he feels vulnerable. To be close to a master means you drop all your territories, you drop all your defenses, you become completely vulnerable. and you do not think of your security at all. A disciple can allow this closeness because he is making a sincere effort to become his own master, to free himself from the slavery of 1,001 desires that are pulling him in opposite directions. Ordinary life is a state of deep slavery, a state of madness where you are driven by forces you do not understand. If you have come to realize this madness, then look at your mind with great intent. Observe its chattering and let it flow without your cooperation. If you do not cooperate with the mind, if you just watch it with deep indifference, the river of thoughts will slowly lose its momentum and come to a complete stop. When the mind stops, you are established in your true witnessing self. You are no longer a doer, you are no longer a thinker. You are just pure being, the cleanest mirror reflecting the entire cosmos. This is the very definition of yoga, the cessation of the mind, chitta vritti nirodha. When there is no mind, you are in yoga. When there is mind, you are in madness. The choice is completely yours, my friend. Reflect on this deeply. Let these insights settle into your heart, and when you are ready to take the next step into this beautiful mystery, just say the word. The arrival of the divine guest requires an empty house, a space that is not crowded with strangers. But if you look inside yourself, your inner house is not only crowded, it is completely occupied by identities and masks that do not even belong to you. What you have accepted as yourself is nothing but a long series of fabrications given to you by the crowd. What you call a normal and sane society is in reality nothing but a collective hypnosis. A well-managed madhouse where madness is the rule, because everybody shares the same delusions. From the very moment a child is born, he is a natural, pure, completely unprogrammed being. He brings with him an infinite emptiness, a virgin sky uncorrupted by words. But a natural human being is a dangerous entity for the vested interests of this world. A natural man cannot be enslaved. He cannot be driven into mechanical obedience. He cannot be forced into slaughtering his fellow human beings in the name of nations and flags. And he cannot be manipulated by politicians or exploited by priests. The society cannot afford a natural man. So the moment the child arrives, the entire machinery of conditioning falls upon him to destroy his originality. Your mind is nothing but a biocomputer that has been programmed by your parents, by your teachers, by your neighbors, and by your churches. They feed data into your innocent brain cells continuously, 24 hours a day, until the mechanical chattering takes over your entire existence. They erase your original face, the face you had before you were born, and force you to wear a painted mask that suits their utility. You lose your authentic reality and slowly accept a phony identity, believing yourself to be a Christian, a Jew, a Hindu, a businessman, a doctor, a failure, or a success. You get so deeply identified with the mask that you completely forget that you are the watcher behind it. There is an ancient parable of a very wise king who wanted his only son, the prince who was going to be his successor, to become a truly wise man before he inherited a vast kingdom. The old king chose a way that appeared to be incredibly strange and cruel. He sent the prince away from the palace in the middle of the night, stripped him of all his beautiful clothes, ornaments, and royal indicators, and gave him the tattered clothes of a beggar. The king ordered that the prince be thrown completely out of the kingdom and issued strict commands that he should never be allowed back under any circumstances. Years passed, and the prince actually became a beggar. He forgot entirely that he was a prince. He begged for food, he begged for shelter, he begged for a few coins on the streets, and slowly he accepted his miserable condition as his only reality. He had wounds on his feet from walking on the burning earth during the hot summer days. One day he was sitting outside a hotel, crying out for just a few coins to buy a pair of second-hand shoes. At that very moment, a golden chariot stopped right in front of him, and a royal messenger descended. The messenger fell at his feet and said, "Your father is very old and dying, and he has called you back to succeed him on the throne of the kingdom." In that single split second, the beggar disappeared completely. The man was totally transformed. You could see it instantly in his eyes, in his posture, in his very vibe. The clothes were still the clothes of a beggar, but the beggar was no more. A prince had arisen. A crowd gathered around him, the very same people before whom he had been spreading his hands for a few pennies just a moment before, and they all started showing great friendship. But he did not even pay attention to them. He sat in the golden chariot and told the messenger, "First take me to a place where I can have a good bath, find clothes worthy of my being, shoes and ornaments, because I can go before the king only as a prince." When he returned to the palace, he asked his dying father, "Why did you make me suffer as a beggar for so many years?" I had completely forgotten my reality, and if you had not called me back, I would have died on the streets as a beggar. The father looked at him with deep love and said, "This is what my own father did to me. It was not done to harm you, but to give you the experience of the two extremes of life, the king and the beggar. And between these two extremes, the whole of humanity exists. That day I told you to forget that you were a prince. Now I want you to remember that being a prince or being a beggar are just identities given to you by others. It is not your reality. It is not you. And the moment you realize that you are not what the world thinks of you, that you are not what you appear to be on the surface, but that you are something so deeply hidden within yourself that except for you, nobody else can ever see it, then you become truly wise. That which can be changed in a single split second by a message from the outside is not you. You are the eternal, the unchangeable witnessing consciousness. If you feel this timeless truth shaking the very foundations of your conditioning, if you can see the painted masks you have been carrying your whole life, let your insights flow into the comments section below. Sharing this clarity with other searching travelers is a magnificent way to spread the wildfire of truth across the earth. And if your heart feels a deep synchronicity with this space, subscribing to our channel will ensure that we continue to walk this path of unburdening together. Because you are forced to wear different masks for different situations, a profound division happens within your inner space. You become split, fragmented, schizophrenic. You have one mask for your wife, another for your mistress, another for your boss, and another for your servant. You cannot show your boss face to your boss because you are a servant there, and you cannot show your servant face to your servant because you are the boss there. If your servant is standing on your right and your boss is standing on your left, you are forced to have two different faces simultaneously on the two sides of your face. This constant acting, this continuous pretension creates an intense inner civil war within your body and your mind. You are boiling inside, hiding a tremendous amount of anger, anxiety, and frustration behind a false, calculated smile. This hidden conflict is what makes you feel like you are going mad, because you are always carrying a heavy load of hypocrisy. Why are people so deeply obsessed with power, prestige, and respectability? Why do they accumulate money endlessly even when they know it cannot buy a single moment of love, peace, or bliss? It is because they are utterly empty inside, and they are trying to fill that dark, terrifying hole with material possessions, with titles, with positions in the society. They spend their whole lives climbing the ladders of ambition, exploiting others, sucking the blood of people like parasites, just to prove to the world that they are somebody. But when they reach the top of the ladder, they find that the road ends there. There is nothing beyond it. They have got all the money and power in the world, but they remain the same impoverished beggars inside. This realization creates a tremendous crushing sense of guilt within them, because their unconscious mind constantly reminds them of all the crimes, all the ugliness they have committed in accumulating this wealth. To escape from this madness of guilt, they create a new mask, the mask of the philanthropist, the mask of the saint. They start donating money to charitable institutions, opening hospitals, building schools, and funding religious organizations just to wash the blood off their hands. All your great charitable institutions, your hospitals, your schools are nothing but the outcomes of deeply guilty, sick people trying to find a consolation for their crimes. Alfred Nobel earned his immense fortune by creating destructive bombs and war materials that slaughtered millions of human beings in the First World War. Both sides of the war were purchasing weapons from his factories. Whoever was killed by his bombs. In his old age, when he had all the money a man could dream of, he established the Nobel Prize for Peace, a peace prize funded by the money earned through war and mass murder. This is the hypocrisy of the human mind. It is exactly like Pontius Pilate, who ordered the crucifixion of an innocent man like Jesus, and then immediately went to wash his hands with water. The physical washing of hands is a deep psychological symptom of a guilty mind trying to clean its own inner dirtiness. The religions of the world have been exploiting this guilt for centuries, offering cheap consolations to criminals, buttressing their egos by calling them great donors and spiritual servers, just to keep their own organizations thriving on anti-religious foundations. Supporting a true spiritual commune, facilitating the expansion of these deep meditative insights to the farthest corners of the earth, is a totally different phenomenon. It is not an act of washing away guilt, but an expression of pure love, an overflowing gesture of deep gratitude for the transformation of human consciousness. If your being feels a profound alignment with this work, you can gracefully use the join button on your official YouTube interface to become an active part of our global digital family, or offer your fragrance through super thanks to support the continuity of these streams, or explore the deep treasures we have gathered for you in our collection of ebooks to nourish your inner space. Let it be a conscious participation, born out of your freedom and intelligence, not out of any social enforcement. Gautam Buddha used to tell a beautiful story to his disciples about a man who was his servant before he attained to his awakening. The man's only duty was to sit in front of Buddha's door, and early in the morning he would count all the cows that were going to the river and the pastures. He would sit there the whole day, and in the evening, during the peaceful hour of sunset, when the cows were returning home, raising dust into the sky, he would count them again. If a single cow was missing, or if he miscounted, he would become intensely worried, anxious, and would not be able to sleep the whole night. Buddha used to look at that poor fellow and ask him, "My friend, do you possess even a single cow of your own?" And the servant would say, "No, master, I am far too poor to own a cow." Then Buddha said to him, "Then why do you unnecessarily waste your energy counting other people's cows every morning and every evening? If a cow is lost, it is the owner's concern. Why are you losing your sleep over it?" Buddha used this simple story to explain a fundamental truth about human knowledge. All your knowledge, all your scriptures, all your philosophies are nothing but counting other people's cows. You have crammed libraries, you have memorized hundreds of holy books, you can repeat words with perfect grammar, correct pronunciation, and beautiful accents. But none of it is your own experience. Your memory is full of dead information, and that information has turned your mind into a huge garbage heap, a crowded marketplace of borrowed ideas. This borrowed knowledge gives you a false sense of knowing, which is the most dangerous barrier to true wisdom. It satisfies your ego, makes you feel like a scholar, a pundit, a knower, but deep inside you remain completely ignorant. Real knowledge does not come from memory. It comes from being. It comes from your own direct existential experience. The day you know the truth on your own, you lose all your knowledgeability and become completely humble, like a little child. You can only say, "I do not know." This innocence is the beginning of meditation. When your masks clash with reality, when your borrowed knowledge fails to solve the deep crisis of life, anger erupts within you. Anger is nothing but a temporary madness that breaks all your superficial adjustments and exposes the violent, chaotic beast that you have been hiding behind your civilized manners. You try to suppress it because the society condemns anger, but suppression never destroys the energy. It only drives it deeper into your unconscious mind, into the very cells of your body. It becomes toxic, chemical, physiological, and turns from a momentary outburst into a chronic, permanent state of rage. You become a walking volcano, always ready to explode, carrying a deep-seated hatred against the whole existence. Meditation means you stop fighting with yourself. You drop all your masks. You look into your inner space with absolute nakedness, and you become a neutral witness to the entire traffic of your mind. To understand this inner temple, you must first understand the 5 ways in which your mind modifies its energy. Patanjali calls them the 5 modifications of the mind, the chitta vrittis, which can become either a source of immense misery or a state of non-misery. Mind itself is neither your enemy nor your friend. It is merely a functional process, a highly refined mechanism of the body. Rightly used, this mechanism leads you to a state of absolute no mind, which is meditation. Wrongly used, it creates a chaotic internal civil war that drives you to the very brink of insanity. The problem is that you are currently being used by the machine rather than being its absolute master. The mind has assumed a dictatorial power over your being, going on and on with its mechanical chattering even when you lie down on your bed and desperately beg it to stop so you can sleep. To put this machine back into its rightful place as a passive servant, you must realize how its 5 modifications operate within your life. These 5 modes are right knowledge, wrong knowledge, imagination, sleep, and memory. The first modification is Brahman, which can be translated as right knowledge. Mind has a hidden faculty that, when directed through silent awareness, reveals the self-evident truth of whatever it focuses upon. It functions exactly like a torch in a dark room. The moment you switch the torch on, the darkness instantly disappears, and whatever the light falls upon becomes crystal clear. A person whose center of right knowledge is active does not need to argue or give logical proofs to the world. When Ramakrishna was asked if God exists, he simply said yes. When asked to prove it, he laughed and said there was no need for proof because he knew it existentially. He was functioning from the luminous center of right knowledge. When you cultivate this effortless clarity through our silent meditations, you are not accumulating new information. You are simply clearing the windows of your consciousness so that the light can shine through. If you feel a deep call to support this ongoing transmission of light, to help us share these essential insights across the earth, you are always welcome to use the join button on your screen to become an active pillar of our spiritual commune. Your conscious participation helps keep this stream of silence alive for thousands of searching souls who are drowning in the noise of the marketplace. The second modification is viparyaya, which means wrong knowledge or perversion. This is a completely perverted way of looking at reality, a false conception that does not correspond to the thing as it actually is. If your perverted center is active, whatsoever you see, hear, or read will be instantly twisted by your prejudices. You can read the most beautiful spiritual treatises, and your mind will find a twisted, ugly meaning in them that would shock the original authors. We are past masters at this perversion because our entire conditioning is rooted in deep-seated prejudices. You never look at a person or a flower freshly. You always look through a thick screen of pre-formulated labels. The moment you hear that someone belongs to a different nation or a different religion, your perverted center immediately projects an image onto them, preventing you from encountering the live human being standing right in front of you. To get free from this constant self-deception, you must learn the art of dying to the past every single moment. You must throw off the accumulated dust of yesterday so that your gaze can remain completely mirror-like, empty and innocent. If you appreciate these deep, unburdening insights, please take a brief moment to like this video and share it with those you love. Your simple engagement helps defeat the algorithms of the marketplace and allows this message of freedom to reach the hearts that need it most. There is a beautiful Zen parable of the master Nanin, who was sent by his teacher to live with a particular man to receive the final finishing touch to his realization. When Nanin arrived, he discovered that this man was just an ordinary keeper of a small roadside inn. Nanin felt very disappointed and thought it must be some kind of joke. For 3 days he watched the innkeeper but saw nothing spiritual. In the morning, the innkeeper would open the doors and thoroughly clean all his pots and utensils. In the evening, after all the guests had gone to sleep, he would clean the same pots and utensils all over again before going to bed. And the next morning, the very first thing he did was to clean those clean pots yet again. Nanin got completely bored and decided to leave, saying there was nothing to learn from an ordinary innkeeper. But when he returned to his original teacher and reported the incident, the teacher said, "This is the ultimate teaching for which you were sent." He had cleaned those pots in the night, but in the morning he was cleaning them again, because even in the night, when nothing was being done, the dust naturally settled on them simply by the passage of time. This is the secret of the inner life, moment to moment, just by the passage of time. The dust of memory and conditioning accumulates in your inner space. You must continuously clean the mirror of your consciousness every single moment so that your clarity is never lost. The third modification of the mind is vikalpa, which is imagination, an image conjured up by words without any objective substance behind it. Imagination is a tremendous internal force. If used wrongly, it creates delusions, hallucinations, and absolute madness. If used rightly, it can become a helpful stepping stone toward meditation. But a meditator must always remember that all visions, whether of beautiful lights, angels, or dancing divinities, are nothing but the creative play of your own imagination. They are beautiful dreams, but they are still dreams, not the ultimate reality. The only thing that is real is the witnessing consciousness that is watching the vision. If you get caught up in your own beautiful imaginations, you are simply changing one prison for a more decorated one. You must remain completely indifferent to all internal phenomena, allowing them to pass like clouds until the sky is absolutely empty. The fourth modification is sleep, which is defined as a modification of the mind based on the complete absence of any content in it. In deep sleep, your conscious chattering stops completely, and your mind disappears into a state of total relaxation. Sleep is incredibly beautiful and life-giving because it leaves you alone with your own being, but you are completely unaware of it. Samadhi, the ultimate state of ecstasy, is exactly like deep sleep, with only one single difference. You are perfectly, intensely awake. If you can bring awareness into your sleep becomes samadhi. It becomes a profound spiritual awakening. To achieve this, you must begin in the day by walking, eating, and living with absolute alertness. The fifth modification is memory, the calling up of past experiences. Your memory is completely unreliable because it continuously distorts the present moment by comparing it with the past. It makes everything old, stale, and utterly boring. Children are ecstatic because they have no burden of memory. Everything they look upon is a brand new phenomenon. If you can drop the constant interference of memory, you will find that the entire existence becomes a continuous celebration, an unceasing dance of joy. To save your sanity from this crowded, chattering mind, you must understand the vital difference between unconditioning and reconditioning. The society always wants to recondition you. If you are a bad slave, it wants to discipline you so that you become a good, obedient slave. It merely changes your programs, replacing an old conditioning with a new one. But yoga is the revolutionary method of absolute unconditioning. It does not want to give you a better prison. It wants to demolish the prison entirely so that you can stand beneath the open sky. Gautam Buddha once went to his monks carrying a beautiful silk handkerchief in his hand. In front of the entire congregation, he tied 5 tight knots in the handkerchief. Then he asked his disciples, "Is this handkerchief the same as it was before, or is it different?" One monk stood up and said, "In its essential nature, it is exactly the same, because the quality of the silk has not changed at all. But on the surface, something new has appeared. 5 knots are now there, so superficially it has changed into a state of limitation." Buddha said, "This is the exact situation of human consciousness. Deep down, your intrinsic nature remains unpolluted, completely unknotted. But on the surface, you are carrying 5 tight knots of conditioning." Then Buddha asked a second question, "What should I do to untie these knots?" Another monk replied, "Master, unless we look closely at how you have pulled the threads to tie the knots in the first place, we cannot say anything, because we must apply the exact reverse process to untie them safely." Buddha said, "This is the entire purpose of my teaching. You must understand exactly how your misery, your anger, and your bondage have been created by the mind. You must diagnose the disease, see how the knots were tightly pulled by your unconsciousness, and then move in the exact reverse order to uncondition yourself completely. This deep process of unconditioning cannot happen through mere intellectual willpower, because your willpower is a product of the ego, and the ego thrives on conflict and suppression. If you try to force yourself to be silent, you are simply pressurizing a volcano. The energy must be given a conscious, total release through inner catharsis. If you feel an immense volcanic fire of suppressed anger or violence boiling within your body, do not dump it on another human being, because that creates a vicious circle of reactions. Close the doors of your room, take a pillow, and express your total madness on the pillow. Beat it, tear it, scream at it, allow your entire unconscious conditioning to uncoil itself completely. While you are acting out your madness on the pillow, keep a small window of awareness open within yourself. Just watch the rising and the falling of the energy as an indifferent witness. You will be surprised. When the energy is totally exhausted, a deep, unforced calmness will fall upon you naturally, and your relationship with the world will be transformed into pure compassion. If you wish to explore these practical methods of catharsis more deeply, we have gathered a magnificent treasury of guidance in our collection of meditative ebooks available for your inner journey. You can also offer an overflowing gesture of love by leaving a super thanks to support our work, ensuring that these maps of freedom continue to reach every searching traveler on this planet. Let your heart guide you in your support while we prepare our being to enter into the ultimate dimension of absolute emptiness, where all mirrors are broken and only the infinite sky remains. This total unconditioning brings you to the ultimate shore, the dimension of absolute emptiness, where the mind is no longer functioning as your master, but has finally faded into complete non-existence. To enter this dimension, you must understand a fundamental distinction that has confused seekers for thousands of years. The difference between concentration and meditation. Concentration is a narrowing of your consciousness. It is a forced, tense state of mind where you focus all your internal energy onto a single point, trying to force everything else out of your vision. It has its own utility in the outside world. Without concentration, science is impossible. The scientist must be capable of forgetting the entire universe to pour his total attention into a single object under his microscope. But because concentration is an exhausting, narrow tunnel vision, it tires the mind completely. It is a mechanical imprisonment of your inner vagabond. Meditation, on the contrary, needs no effort, no forcing, and no narrowing. It is a state of unbounded, open awareness where you are not focusing on anything at all, but are simply resting at your own center as an effortless watcher. In concentration, you are like a soldier standing on guard, tense and alert against the enemy. In meditation, you are like a person sitting loosely on a hill, quietly watching the whole valley unfold below. You must change your entire inner focus from the narrow tunnel of doing to the infinite expanse of being. If your being recognizes this effortless shift right now, if you can feel a deep, silent relaxation expanding within your chest as you listen to my voice, I invite you to share that beauty by leaving a comment below. Let your words reflect the silence you are experiencing in this very moment. And let us turn the comment section into a magnificent sanctuary of shared presence. Your shared experience acts like a beautiful light for other weary travelers who are still struggling with the roaring noise of their own racing minds. This effortless watchfulness can be understood deeply through the difference between mechanical hearing and heart-centered listening. Hearing is a purely physiological, mechanical process. You have ears, you have an auditory mechanism and sounds automatically hit your eardrums. Even animals hear. But listening is a far higher spiritual stage of consciousness. Listening means that when you are hearing, your mind is totally quiet, without any internal commentary, without any interpretation, and without any clouds of prejudice passing through your inner sky. The words reach you exactly as they are spoken, without being distorted by your past memories or your future desires. Ordinarily, you manage your life just by hearing, because you are dealing with common objects of the marketplace: a house, a car, a job. But when we are talking about the ultimate mystery of no mind, mechanical hearing will not do. You need to listen with absolute attention and playfulness. If you can listen to this silence between my words, that very listening becomes your meditation. It acts like a seed dropped into the fertile soil of your heart, growing silently on its own accord until your whole life becomes a grand celebration. When you are trapped in concentration, you become completely oblivious to the real world around you, because your mind has forced everything out of its focus. Thomas Alva Edison, one of the greatest scientific minds, was once working in his laboratory with such intense concentration that he became entirely dead to the outside world. His wife came into the room with his breakfast, but seeing him so deeply absorbed, she quietly put the plate down by his side and left. A friend dropped by a little later, saw Edison completely lost in his work, and noticed the breakfast getting cold. The friend decided not to disturb the great scientist, so he simply sat down and ate the breakfast himself. When Edison finally emerged from his tunnel of concentration, he looked around, saw his friend sitting there, and noticed the empty plates. Edison smiled and said to his friend, "Please forgive me. You have come a little too late. I have already finished my breakfast." He saw the empty plates, and his logical mind concluded that he must have eaten it himself. This is the nature of concentration. It makes you highly efficient in one narrow thing, but it makes you completely blind and stupid about your own life. It takes away your common sense and isolates you from the organic rhythm of nature. Meditation never isolates you. It makes you multidimensionally alive and sensitive to the entire cosmos. It does not ask you to escape from your ordinary life, from your business, or from your family. It simply teaches you a totally new way of being in the world. You become the absolute center of the cyclone. The outside world continues with all its actions. You chop wood, you draw water from the well, you run your business, but at your innermost core, there is not even a single ripple. You remain a pure watcher on the hills, simply seeing everything that happens around you without getting identified. If your heart longs to be part of this revolutionary experiment, to help us sustain and expand this oasis of silence across a world that is moving faster and faster toward madness, you are always invited to use the join button on your screen to become an active member of our digital commune. By choosing to support our work natively through your interface, or by offering a spontaneous gesture of gratitude through super thanks, you are directly participating in the birth of a new humanity. Your conscious support ensures that these maps of the inner sky remain freely available to every searching soul on earth, helping them to find their way back home. This total relaxation cannot be achieved if you are constantly pushing the river of life, trying to force things to happen according to your egoistic desires. The modern mind is in a mad, frantic rush because it lives under the illusion of a single, limited lifespan. You feel that time is running out, that youth is disappearing, that death is approaching, so you must run faster and faster to achieve your goals. But this very hurry makes you shallow. It never allows you to taste the depth of the present moment. If you can understand the cosmic rhythm of existence, you will realize that the grass grows by itself when the spring comes. You do not need to pull the grass to make it grow faster. Your very forcing will destroy its roots. You simply need to relax, sit silently, and let existence live through you. If pushing is your natural energy, then push playfully, like a child playing a game, but without any tension or anxiety about the results. The moment you drop the seriousness of the achieving motive, your whole life becomes a magnificent, unceasing dance. This absolute let go is beautifully illustrated by an ancient Zen parable of a monk who was walking through a thick forest. Suddenly, he became aware that a ferocious tiger was following him, so he started running. But because he was a Zen meditator, his running was not frantic or chaotic. He moved smoothly, in perfect harmony with his breath, enjoying the running itself. As he ran, he came to the edge of a deep precipice. He looked down and saw a wild lion standing in the valley below, waiting for him to fall. To save himself from the tiger, the monk caught hold of a wild vine hanging over the edge and swung himself down, suspending himself in midair between the tiger above and the lion below. As he hung there, he looked at the vine and saw two small mice, one white and one black, representing day and night, slowly chewing away at the roots of the vine. He knew that within minutes the vine would break and he would fall into the mouth of the lion. He looked around himself, accepting his absolute destiny, and noticed a few wild strawberries growing on the rock face right next to the vine. He reached out with his one free hand, picked a strawberry, put it in his mouth, and ate it. It was the sweetest, most delicious strawberry he had ever tasted in his entire life. In that exact moment of absolute danger, because he had no future, no hope, and no desire, time stopped completely for him, and he attained to his first satori, his ultimate enlightenment. When death is absolutely certain, all your anxieties drop away, and you are left only with the pure nowness of the moment. The ordinary human mind is so deeply afraid of this total dissolution, of this absolute emptiness, that even when it finds the ultimate truth, it chooses to run away to protect its own petty ego. The great mystic poet Rabindranath Tagore wrote a magnificent poem about his lifelong search for the divine. For millions of lives, he had been searching for God all over the universe, looking behind the stars, wandering through unknown dimensions. Sometimes he would see a glimpse of the divine far away and would run toward it. But by the time he arrived, the divine had moved somewhere else. But he continued his search with absolute determination until one day he actually arrived at a beautiful palace, and on the golden door was written, "God's home." You can imagine his immense ecstasy. His journey of millions of lives was finally fulfilled. He ran up the marble steps, but just as he was about to knock on the door, his hand froze completely. A sudden, terrifying realization arose within his consciousness. If I knock on this door and the door opens and I face the divine, I am finished. My entire identity, my entire existence has been built around the search, around the journey. I am a seeker. If the search ends, I will be annihilated completely. Then what will I do? Then there will be nothing but an eternity of absolute boredom, with no new challenges, no new discoveries, and no excitement. Tagore began to tremble with fear. He quietly took off his shoes so that no noise was made, descended the marble steps backwards, and ran away as fast as he could, faster than he had ever run in his life. The poem ends with these profound words: I am still searching for God all over the universe. I know exactly where His house is, so I avoid it completely and look for Him everywhere else. My excitement is great, my challenge is great, and my journey continues. But deep down within my heart, I know that my search is not for God at all. My search is simply to nourish and protect my own ego. This is the exact situation of your racing mind. You want meditation, you want silence, you want to save your sanity, but the moment you come close to the absolute silence of no mind, you panic because you can see that entering that silence means the total death of your ego. You use your questions, your doubts, and your problems as defense mechanisms to keep yourself busy, to keep yourself engaged, so that you never have to face the ultimate void. But I tell you, do not be afraid of this death, because it is not a destruction, it is a resurrection. When the small dirty dewdrop slips from the lotus leaf and falls into the vast ocean, it does not die. It simply loses its tiny, miserable limitations and becomes the infinite ocean itself. If your soul is ready to drop its limitations, if you wish to explore these deep maps of the inner sky more thoroughly, we have prepared a beautiful, comprehensive library of digital ebooks to guide you through every stage of your unconditioning. You are always welcome to immerse yourself in these treasures, and if you wish to leave a beautiful signature of your love, you can share this video with another searching traveler or hit the like button to let the algorithms know that truth is alive on this earth. Let us continue this game of questions and answers, not to find new theories for the head, but to dissolve the head completely so that only the heart remains, beating in perfect synchronicity with the vast, silent pulse of the entire cosmos. When the door of your inner house is finally open, you do not need to make any effort to invite the sky inside. The sky is already there. It has always been there, surrounding you on all sides, waiting for you to become aware of its presence. But your mind is deeply terrified of this vast, infinite expanse, because the mind can only exist where boundaries exist. The mind feels perfectly secure in a small prison, in a tight, well-defined enclosure of beliefs, definitions, and concepts. The moment you step out of that familiar enclosure, a deep panic arises within your consciousness. This panic is what modern human psychology calls anxiety or neurosis. But it is not a disease at all. It is simply the natural fear of your small ego losing its grip over reality. The ego can only function when it is in conflict with something, when there is a clear demarcation between the I and the other. When you are standing before the boundless emptiness of existence, the other disappears entirely. And when the other disappears, your small fabricated ego cannot find any ground to stand upon. It begins to melt like an ice cube dropped into a warm ocean. This melting of the ice cube is what true health is, but the crowd has trained you from your very childhood to believe that the frozen ice cube is your only identity. You are constantly trying to protect this frozen state, keeping yourself inside an artificial refrigerator of conditionings, respectabilities, and social positions. You are afraid that if you come out into the warm sun of absolute awareness, you will be gone. And your fear is perfectly right. You will be gone. But you do not understand that your disappearance is the birth of the divine within you. As a frozen ice cube, you are only a hard, cold, dead thing, always in friction and collision with other ice cubes around you. The moment you melt, you become a flowing, alive stream of water, dancingly moving toward the ocean. This transition from the frozen state to the fluid state is what meditation is all about. It is not an achievement in the future. It is simply allowing your nature to find its own natural flow in the here and now. If your heart can feel this natural flow right now, if you can sense the hard ice of your ego beginning to soften just by listening to my voice, let that insight find expression in your life. Leave a reflection of your heart in the comments section below and share this stream of silence with another weary traveler who is still trying to keep his ice cube from melting in the hot desert of the marketplace. When you choose to share this clarity, you are not just passing on dead information. You are helping to create a global chain of awareness, an invisible brotherhood of silent souls who are ready to look beyond the delusions of the crowd. By liking this recording and subscribing to our channel, you ensure that this message of freedom remains alive and continues to flow like a river to the farthest corners of the earth. Our entire structure of education and society is based on utility, on turning you into a useful commodity for the system. The society asks, what is your use? What can you produce? How efficient are you? It never asks, what is your being? Are you happy? Are you silent? Is there a beautiful song in your heart? Because a happy person, a silent person, is of no use to the vested interests of this world. A silent person cannot be driven into a frantic state of competition. He cannot be manipulated by clever politicians or forced into wars to kill other human beings in the name of flags and nations. A silent person is completely satisfied with himself as he is, and that satisfaction is the greatest rebellion possible against a consumerist society. The society wants you to remain constantly dissatisfied, always hungry for more, always running after new gadgets, new cars, new luxuries, because your inner dissatisfaction is the fuel that keeps the wheels of their marketplace turning. If you can see this grand deception clearly, you will understand why meditation is looked upon with such deep suspicion by the powerful people of the world. They want you to be efficient, predictable machines, not alive, spontaneous human beings. They have transformed the whole earth into a massive factory where everyone is working hard to produce things that are ultimately useless. And in that continuous production, you are throwing away your own precious life. You are working 5 days a week in a job you hate just to earn enough to spend on the weekend to forget the misery of those 5 days. And then on Monday you are back in the same trap. This is a perfect circle of madness, and yet you call this normal, sane life. If somebody drops out of this circle, you call him a vagabond, a bum, or a madman. But to me, the people who are running inside the circle with great speed are the truly insane ones, because they are reaching nowhere. A circle has no destination. It is just a routine repetition of the old. To help keep this oasis of rebellion alive, to ensure that these maps of the inner sky continue to reach the young minds who are suffocating in the factory of the crowd, your conscious participation is needed. If your being feels a profound alignment with our work, you are always welcome to use the join button on your official YouTube interface to become an active member of our digital commune, or offer your love through super thanks to facilitate the continuity of these recordings. Your support is not a business transaction. It is an act of pure generosity, a way of saying to existence that you value the beauty of silence and freedom over the frantic noise and slavery of the marketplace. Deep within your mind, there is a constant, terrifying fear of being completely alone. This fear of aloneness is why you are always seeking entertainment, always looking for someone to talk to, always keeping your mind engaged with the television, the radio, or social media. You cannot sit silently in your room even for half an hour without feeling a strange restlessness in your limbs. The moment you are left alone with yourself, a deep boredom settles upon you. But you do not understand the nature of this boredom. Boredom is simply the indication that you have been living a false, superficial life, that you have been living through others, and when the others are removed, you don't know who you are. Your personality requires a constant audience to sustain itself. If there is no audience, your masks start slipping off, and behind the masks you find nothing but a vast empty void. To escape this void, you run back to the crowd back to your clubs, your parties, your businesses. You call this your social life, but it is nothing but a collective escape from your own reality. You are lonely, and the other person is also lonely, and two lonely people meet together and think that they are going to create happiness for each other. This is an absolute impossibility. Two beggars cannot make each other rich. They will only double their poverty and blame each other for their internal bankruptcy. This deep sense of internal poverty and the intricate pathways of your own interiority are beautifully mapped out in our extensive collection of digital ebooks, which we have prepared with great love for your inner journey. These books are not meant to give you new doctrines to decorate your mind, but to act as a profound clean-up process, a deep unconditioning that helps you drop the heavy load of borrowed words so you can discover the silent source of your own aloneness. You can dive into these hidden treasures whenever your heart longs for a deeper penetration into the world of no mind. Meditation teaches you to transform your loneliness into aloneness. Loneliness is a negative state, a state of missing the other, a state of feeling dependent on the outside world for your value. Aloneness is a positive state, a state of complete self-fulfillment, a state of being so full of your own presence that you do not need anyone else to make you feel alive. When you are truly alone, you are like a magnificent peak of a mountain standing high against the sky, perfectly content in your own grandeur. This aloneness is your real self, and it is a state of absolute health. A man who has known the beauty of aloneness can love deeply, because his love is not a need, it is not a dependency. His love is a pure gift, an overflowing of his own inner abundance. He does not love because he wants to get something from you. He loves simply because he has so much joy inside himself that he cannot contain it. He has to share it with the world. Ordinary human beings are always confused between information and wisdom. Information is given to you by others, it comes from the outside, it is a dead thing. Wisdom is something that arises out of your own organic being when you are completely silent, alert, and present in the moment. Information can make you a scholar, a great academician, a professor, but it will never make you an awakened soul. You can know everything about the history of meditation. You can know all the Sanskrit terms. You can explain all the sutras of Patanjali logically. But if you have not tasted a single moment of no mind on your own, your whole knowledge is just an exercise in futility. It is like a blind man who has studied the entire science of light and optics, who can deliver magnificent lectures on the colors of the rainbow, but who has never seen a single ray of the sun. His knowledge may deceive others, it may even deceive himself, but it cannot give him eyes to see the reality. The mind is always afraid of the raw, naked reality because reality is unpredictable. The mind operates through rules, regulations, habits, and calculations. It wants everything to be certain, defined, and safe. But life is an absolute mystery. It knows no certainty. The only thing certain in life is uncertainty. The moment you try to force life into a certain logical pattern, you kill its fluid movement, you turn it into a dead plastic thing. This is what you have done to your love. This is what you have done to your friendships. This is what you have done to your very breathing. You have made everything mechanical, routine, and predictable because you are afraid of the wild, untamed nature of existence. Look at a tree blossoming in the spring. It does not ask for permission from the society. It does not follow any logical syllabus. It does not check any moralistic code. It simply overflows with its own intrinsic energy, bursting into thousands of flowers out of pure joy. This spontaneity is what you have lost because of your deep societal hypnosis. You have become so calculating that even before you laugh, you think whether it is proper to laugh in this particular situation or not. Even before tears come to your eyes, you suppress them because you think that showing tears is a sign of weakness, an unmanly thing, or an uncivilized behavior. You have repressed your reality so deeply that you have become an artificial entity, a plastic doll dressed in expensive clothes, moving automatically according to the orders of the crowd. If you can see this plastic nature of your life clearly, then look at your racing mind without any judgment, without any effort to stop it. Just watch it as an observer, and you will find that a miracle begins to happen. The very looking, the very watching creates a subtle distance between you and the mechanical chattering of your brain cells. You become aware that the mind is just a machine running on its own past momentum, and you are the timeless space that is witnessing the machine. This realization is the birth of the new man within you, a man who is no longer a slave to his past conditioning, but who is perfectly free to live each moment out of his own conscious awareness. To be a master of yourself, you must understand that your mind is a chronic hoarder of dead experiences. It does not want to let go of anything, whether it is a bitter memory from 20 years ago or a small hurt inflicted by someone yesterday. It hoards these dead things and carries them like a heavy baggage on its back. And because of this baggage, your present moment is continuously crushed. You cannot see the beauty of the morning sun because your eyes are full of the dust of yesterday. You cannot listen to the song of the birds because your ears are full of the old arguments and conflicts of the past. Your mind is like a cemetery full of graves, and you are living inside that cemetery, wondering why your life feels so heavy, so dark, and so meaningless. Meditation is the art of dying to the past every single moment so that you can remain fresh, young, and completely alive in the present. When you die to the past, you don't carry any memories into the next moment. You enter the next moment completely empty, nude, and innocent like a newborn baby. In that innocence, everything becomes a wonder. An ordinary pebble on the beach becomes a magnificent diamond. A small flower in the grass becomes the greatest masterpiece of creation. And your own breathing becomes a profound source of bliss. This freshness is your natural state of being, but you have lost it because you have made the mind your master. The mind always behaves like a servant who has taken over the house while the master was asleep. The servant has become the dictator, and he is driving you crazy with his constant orders, calculations, and anxieties. He goes on telling you what to do, what to think, how to behave, and you simply follow his orders like a slave because you have been doing it for so long that it has become an automatic mechanical habit. To break this habit, you do not need to fight with the servant. If you fight with him, you are giving him attention, and attention is food for the mind. If you fight with the mind becomes stronger because a fight requires energy, and that energy is supplied by you. The secret of meditation is not fight but pure, indifferent watchfulness. Just sit silently by the side of the road and let the mind pass like a procession of vehicles. A truck passes, that is a thought of anger. Just watch it pass. A luxury car passes, that is a thought of greed. Just watch it pass. A small scooter passes, that is a trivial, silly thought. Just watch it pass. You do not need to stop any vehicle, you do not need to jump into any vehicle, and you do not need to direct the traffic. You are simply a bystander, a watcher on the sidewalk, completely unconcerned with where the traffic is going or why it is there. If you can maintain this indifferent watchfulness, this upeksha as Buddha calls it, you will be surprised to see that the traffic naturally begins to slow down. The intervals between the vehicles become wider, the space between thoughts becomes larger, and one day, suddenly, the whole traffic disappears, and you are left in a state of absolute, profound silence. This state of absolute silence is what we call no mind, and it is the only way to save your sanity in a world that has gone completely mad. In the state of no mind, you are no longer an individual separate from the universe. You are the universe itself. The boundaries of your ego have dissolved completely, and you are in perfect harmony with the trees, the stars, the ocean, and the mountains. You are no longer running after anything because you have found everything within your own being. You are no longer afraid of death because you have discovered the deathless source of your own consciousness. You are completely fulfilled, contented, and at home. This deep sense of being at home is what you have been searching for through all your desires, through all your ambitions, through all your relationships. You thought that you would find it by becoming rich, by becoming powerful, by finding a perfect lover, or by achieving respectability in the society. But all those doors have led you into deeper, dark holes of frustration because you were looking in the wrong direction. You were looking outside for that which can only be found inside. The treasure is hidden within your own interiority, and meditation is the simple key to open that treasure chest. If your heart recognizes the absolute truth of what I am saying to you today, do not let your mind turn it into a new theory or a new philosophy. Do not start thinking about it, start living it. Bring awareness into your small daily actions. When you walk, walk with absolute alertness, feeling each step, feeling the touch of the earth beneath your feet. When you eat, eat with absolute presence, tasting each bite, chewing it slowly, being completely there with the food. When you look at a tree, just look without any words in your head, without saying, "This is a mango tree," or "This is a beautiful tree." Just let your eyes reflect the greenness of the leaves without any internal commentary. Slowly, slowly, this awareness will penetrate into your deeper layers of consciousness, into your dreams, and ultimately into your deep sleep. Your whole life will be transformed into a beautiful, unceasing meditation. You will remain in the marketplace, doing your business, earning your bread, looking after your family, but you will not be of the marketplace. You will be a silent watcher, a mirror that reflects everything but remains completely untouched, unpolluted, and pure. This state of pure reflection is your birthright, and it is the only true health, the only true sanity. Do not settle for anything less than this. because anything less than this is a form of slavery, a form of madness. Be a master of yourself. Be a Zorba the Buddha, fully alive to the material richness of the earth and fully silent to the spiritual grandeur of the beyond. Let these two worlds meet within your being, and let your life become a magnificent, eternal celebration. When you begin to feel this deep harmony within your own being, you will realize that your existence is no longer a separate, isolated thing. You will start feeling a profound compassion for all living beings, because you will see that they are carrying the same potential, the same divine spark within themselves, but they are fast asleep, torturing themselves with their own false conditionings and masks. You will not look down upon them with any superiority or judgment. Your heart will simply overflow with a deep, silent love for them, a desire to help them awaken from their long, nightmarish sleep. This love, this compassion is not a moral duty that you have to practice. It is the natural fragrance of your own meditation. Just as a rose flower opens its petals and automatically releases its fragrance into the wind, without choosing who should smell it and who should not, a meditative person simply radiates love and peace to everyone around him. His very presence becomes a healing force, an invitation for others to drop their burdens and enter into the world of freedom. To help us create a grand network of such silent, awakened souls across the earth, to keep this stream of transformation flowing freely to every corner of this planet, your continuous support is immensely valuable. If your being feels a beautiful synchronicity with this vision, remember that you can natively use the join button on your interface to become an active pillar of our global digital commune, or offer your spontaneous gratitude through super thanks to facilitate the expansion of these recordings. You can also dive into our curated collection of meditative ebooks to find practical guidance for your unique inner journey. Let your support be a conscious, joyful participation in the birth of a new humanity. The journey of meditation is not a straight line. It is a profound process of layers upon layers. As you go deeper, you will find that the mind will try to bring up its oldest, most deeply hidden wounds to distract you. It will bring up your childhood fears, your repressed anger, your hidden jealousies, and it will make them look incredibly real, like a violent storm shaking your whole being. But this is a beautiful sign. It means that the light of your awareness is finally reaching into the darkest corners of your basement, forcing all the scorpions and snakes to come out into the open. Do not fight with these monsters, and do not become afraid of them. If you become afraid, you will close your eyes and fall back into darkness. If you fight with them, you will give them your energy and make them stronger. Simply look at them with absolute calmness, with a deep, relaxed indifference. Let them dance, let them scream, let them show their ugly faces. You just remain the host, quietly watching the show. You will see that because you are not cooperating, because you are not providing them any food through your identification, they will soon get tired and disappear on their own accord, leaving your inner space cleaner, fresher, and lighter than ever before. This purity, this lightness is the ground where the ultimate flowering happens. In this lightness, you will find that you are no longer carrying any questions, because you have found the unquestionable reality of your own existence. You are no longer looking for any answers, because you have become the answer itself. You just exist, a pure flame of consciousness, radiant with light, overflowing with bliss, and in absolute tune with the eternal music of the entire cosmos. This is the ultimate peak of human potential, the final destination of your journey, and it is waiting for you in this very moment, just a single step of awareness away. Stop running outside, stop pushing the river of life, turn your gaze within, and let the miracle happen to you right now. This turning of the gaze within is not a turning toward a new object, because inside you there is no object to be found. If you find an object inside, it is still part of the outside world that you have dragged into your memory cells. If you see a light, if you see a vision of a God, if you hear an internal voice, it is still the mind playing its old games on a different stage. The true turning inward means you pass through all objects, you allow all visions to fade away, you leave all words behind, and you finally arrive at the ultimate subject, the pure observer who cannot be turned into an object of anything else. You become an absolute presence through your absolute absence. This is the great paradox of the inner life, that the more you are absent as an ego, the more you are present as consciousness. When you are completely empty of yourself, you are suddenly full of existence. It is like a room that is full of furniture, old boxes, and junk. The room is crowded, there is no space to move, no air to breathe, no light can enter. If you take out all the furniture, the boxes, the junk, what remains behind? You will say nothing remains behind, but that nothingness is the real room. The furniture was not the room, the junk was not the room, they were only occupying the space of the room. When all the junk is removed, The infinite space of the room is revealed to you for the first time. Your consciousness is exactly like that room. Your thoughts, your desires, your identities, your masks are nothing but the junk filling the room. When meditation cleanses your inner space completely, you become a vast, unpolluted, silent emptiness. And that emptiness is your reality. That emptiness is your ultimate sanity. If your being can feel this spaciousness right now, if you can perceive the massive architecture of your old thoughts beginning to dissolve into a beautiful light emptiness, let that clarity settle deep within your heart. Do not let your mind jump in to make a new calculation out of it. Simply allow it to soak into your soul like rain soaking into the dry earth. If you feel a deep call to share this fragrance with other searching travelers who are still struggling with the suffocating crowd of their own minds, you are always welcome to leave a comment below. Let your words come out of your own silence. Let them be an authentic signature of your presence. When you choose to interact with this recording, you are not just fulfilling a mechanical algorithm of the marketplace. You are helping to create a global chain of awareness, an invisible communion of free individuals who are ready to look beyond the illusions of the crowd. By liking this video and subscribing to our channel, you become a conscious part of our ongoing revolution, ensuring that these streams of deep wisdom continue to flow to every corner of the earth. The ordinary human mind is completely incapable of understanding the beauty of being empty, because the mind has been trained for centuries to value only that which is useful, that which can be accumulated, that which has a price tag in the marketplace. The mind asks, what can you do with emptiness? It cannot be sold, it cannot be hoarded, it cannot give you power over others, and it cannot fulfill your ambitions. Because emptiness is of no use to your ego, the mind looks upon it as something negative, something to be avoided, something like death. And the mind is perfectly right. Emptiness is death to the mind. It is the total annihilation of all your petty ambitions and greed. But what is death to the mind is the birth of the divine within you. It is the beginning of a life that knows no boundaries, a life that is an unceasing celebration, a continuous dance of joy. You have been taught by your society to be afraid of this death. So you have created an artificial world of continuous activity to protect yourself from your own emptiness. You are always doing something, even when there is no need to do anything. If you have a holiday, you don't know how to enjoy it, you immediately plan a trip, you go to a resort, you visit friends, or you start cleaning your house. You cannot sit silently in your room for a single hour doing nothing, because the moment you stop doing, the false structure of your personality begins to shake, and you come face to face with your own inner void. To escape that void, you run back to your work, back to your gadgets, back to your relationships, keeping yourself perpetually distracted so that you never have to look inside. This continuous escape from yourself is what creates your deep anxiety, your neurosis, your constant feeling of going mad. You are running away from your own home, and in that running, you are becoming more and more exhausted, more and more fragmented. To help keep this sanctuary of silence alive, to ensure that these maps of the inner sky continue to reach the young minds who are suffocating in the factory of the crowd, your conscious support is a beautiful necessity. If your being feels a profound alignment with our work, you are always invited to natively use the join button on your interface to become an active member of our digital commune, or offer your love and gratitude through super thanks to facilitate the continuity of these recordings. You can also explore our extensive digital library of ebooks, which we have prepared with great care to serve as practical guides for your unconditioning. Your support is not a commercial transaction. It is an act of pure generosity, a way of contributing to the transformation of human consciousness across the entire earth. You must understand that all you're doing is superficial. It belongs only to the periphery of your life. The periphery cannot exist without the center, but you have become so completely identified with the periphery that you have forgotten the center entirely. Your business, your job, your social status, your respectability are nothing but the clothes you are wearing on the circumference of your being. It does not matter what kind of clothes you choose. Somebody wears the clothes of a king, somebody wears the clothes of a beggar, somebody wears the clothes of a businessman, and somebody wears the clothes of a priest. These are ways of earning your bread and butter, ways of finding shelter in the outside world. They cannot change your intrinsic reality. But the madness of the modern man is that he allows his doing to color his being completely. A businessman becomes so businesslike that even when he comes home, he remains a businessman. He looks at his wife as a commodity. He looks at his children as investments. And he evaluates his friendships according to profit and loss. His being has been completely swallowed by his doing. When you are completely occupied by your doing, you lose your natural intelligence and accept a poor, cunning substitute called cleverness. Cleverness is not intelligence. Cleverness is the weapon of a cowardly, ambitious mind that wants to manipulate others for its own selfish ends. An intelligent person does not need to be clever. He is completely innocent, spontaneous, and lives out of a state of profound not knowing. He does not project any future. He does not calculate any consequences. He simply responds to the present moment with his total being. This spontaneity is what meditation brings to you. It does not ask you to renounce your business or leave your ordinary life. It simply gives you the capacity to put your doing aside when it is not needed, so that you can slide easily into the silent world of your being. You remain a businessman in your shop, but the moment you close the shop, the businessman is dead, and you return home as a pure, innocent human being, full of love, full of joy, and perfectly at ease with yourself. There is a magnificent Sufi story about a great master who was sitting by the side of a river with his disciples. The master was completely silent, looking at the water flowing by, and the disciples were also sitting in deep peace, enjoying the quietness of the morning. A traveler passed by, saw this silent assembly, and felt a strange curiosity. He walked up to the master and asked, "What are you doing here?" The master opened his eyes, smiled with deep love, and said, "We are doing nothing, we are just sitting." The traveler could not understand. He said, "But how can you just sit doing nothing? It is a waste of time. Time is valuable. You should be doing something productive, something useful." The master looked at him and said, "You don't understand the secret of life. This river is flowing on its own accord. The wind is blowing on its own accord. The sun is rising on its own accord. Everything in this vast universe is happening. Nobody is doing it. We are simply practicing the art of happening. We are sitting loosely, allowing existence to live through us without any interference from our side. This non-interference is what meditation is all about. The traveler was shocked. He had never heard such a thing before. In his world, everyone was running, pushing, and forcing things to happen. He asked, "But if you don't do anything, how will you survive? How will you grow?" The master laughed loudly and said, "Look at the trees, look at the grass, look at the birds. They don't have any businesses, they don't have any jobs, they don't go to any schools, and yet they are so beautiful, so green, so full of song. They are looked after by the whole universe. Why do you think you are an exception? You are also part of this universe, but you have cut your roots from the whole because of your false ego, your constant desire to be the doer. Drop this doing, step out of your mind, sit silently, and you will realize that the spring comes and the grass grows by itself. This beautiful secret of happening, this deep unconditioning of your inner space, is what we have mapped out in all its dimensions within our collection of digital ebooks. They are not meant to give you new information to decorate your mind, but to serve as a mirror, showing you the exact ways in which your mind has been keeping you a slave to its routines. You can immerse yourself in these books whenever you feel a strong desire to penetrate into the world of no mind, using them as a map to guide your steps back to your own center. When you are trapped in the illusion of being the doer, your whole life becomes a heavy burden of responsibility. You feel that you are responsible for everything, that you have to control everything, that if you don't manage things perfectly, everything will fall apart. This constant need to control creates an intense, crushing state of tension inside your body and your mind. You can never relax. You can never sleep well. You can never breathe deeply, because your mind is always on guard, always projecting new problems and calculating new solutions. This tension is what makes you feel like you are going mad, because you are trying to carry the weight of the entire universe on your small, fragile shoulders. You don't realize that the universe was running perfectly well before you were born, and it will continue to run perfectly well after you are dead. You are not needed to run the universe. Your ego is simply playing a stupid joke on you, making you believe that you are indispensable. Meditation is the sudden realization that you are not indispensable, that you are just a small drop in this vast, infinite ocean of existence. When this realization dawns upon you, a tremendous unburdening happens instantly. All your tensions drop away, all your anxieties evaporate, and you feel a profound peace settling into your soul. You are no longer responsible for running the world. You are only responsible for being present, for being alert, for being a silent witness to the magnificent play of existence. This shift from the doer to the witness is the ultimate liberation. You continue to live your ordinary life, you do your daily work, you look after your family, but the internal quality of your actions is totally transformed. You are no longer acting out of greed, out of fear, or out of ambition. You are acting out of pure joy, out of deep love, out of an overflowing abundance of your own being. Your actions become a form of prayer, a spontaneous gesture of gratitude to the divine. I am not interested in making you a monk. I am not interested in sending you to a cave in the Himalayas. The old style of sannyas has failed completely because the people who escaped to the mountains carried their crowded, ambitious minds with them. You can change your outer environment easily, but if you don't change your inner chemistry, you will recreate the same miserable world wherever you go. A man who escapes his family and goes to a monastery will immediately create a new family there. He will get attached to his cave. He will fight with other monks for position, and he will look upon his scriptures as his new wealth. He has changed the objects of his attachment, but the habit of attachment remains exactly the same. The mind is very cunning. It can turn even renunciation into a new ambition, a new way to fulfill its ego. My sannyas is a totally new experiment. It means you remain exactly where you are, in the marketplace, in your ordinary life, but you change your inner space completely. You become a witness to your own mind. You drop all your identifications and you live each moment out of your own conscious alertness. This is what I call being a Zorba the Buddha, a new kind of human being who is fully capable of enjoying all the beautiful gifts of the material world and at the same time is deeply rooted in the silent serenity of the spiritual beyond. There is no conflict between the two. There is no wall between matter and spirit. They are two poles of the same organic reality. To live in abundance, to enjoy music, to love deeply, to dance with joy, and to be absolutely silent at your own center. This is the true way of a healthy, whole human being. If your heart can see the magnificent grandeur of this vision, let your being become a fertile ground for its growth. Do not let your old traditional mind create new doubts or new barriers. Simply listen to my voice and let the truth of it ignite your own inner fire. If you wish to leave a beautiful sign of your love and alignment with this revolution of consciousness, you can share this stream of silence with those who are close to you, or hit the like button to let the world know that an authentic way of living is alive on this earth. By choosing to support our commune natively through your interface, using the join button, or offering your love through super thanks, you are directly helping us to create a grand network of awareness across the entire globe. Let your participation be a conscious, joyous act of pure love. We must understand that the modern mind is a deeply sick phenomenon because it has been cut off from its natural roots. For centuries, the whole human past has been dominated by an anti-life attitude, a pathology that has praised poverty, self-torture, and asceticism as spiritual virtues. The so-called saints of all the traditions have been deeply sick, masochistic people who enjoyed torturing their own bodies and minds. They would fast for days. They would stand on their heads. They would lie on beds of thorns, and they would repress all their natural desires, believing that by destroying their nature, they would find the supernatural divine. And a sick society full of guilt and fear worshipped these people because they were doing something unnatural, something that ordinary people could not do. This mutual conspiracy between the sick saint and the sick society has turned the entire earth into a massive madhouse. I am completely against this pathology. To me, torturing yourself is not spiritual. It is a form of slow, deliberate suicide. It is a crime against nature, a crime against the divine that has given you this magnificent body and this beautiful mind as instruments for your growth. A man who is starving himself cannot meditate because his whole energy will be focused on food. He will think about food the whole day and dream about food the whole night. A man who is forcing celibacy on himself cannot find peace because his mind will be completely filled with sexual fantasies and perversions. You cannot transcend anything by repressing it. You can transcend only by living it totally, by understanding its rhythm, and by allowing it to flower and wither away naturally. Nature is not ascetic. Nature loves abundance. Nature loves richness. Nature loves luxury. Look at the trees bursting into thousands of flowers. Look at the birds singing in the morning sun. Look at the infinite stars scattered across the sky. There is no poverty in existence. Existence is a constant, overflowing celebration of energy. My effort is to bring you back to this natural, existential richness. I want you to be healthy, well-nourished, physically at ease, because only a body that is relaxed and comfortable can become a beautiful vehicle for meditation. When your body is satisfied, when its natural needs are looked after with deep love and care, it becomes absolutely quiet. It does not create any disturbance. Then you can sit in zazen easily because the body does not demand your attention. It becomes like a silent shrine, and you can easily take a jump into the boundless sky of your own consciousness. This natural, holistic approach is why I am looked upon with such intense anger and jealousy by all the traditional religions of the world. They cannot tolerate a man who is happy. They cannot tolerate a man who lives in abundance. And they cannot tolerate a man who tells people that their misery is completely self-created. They have thrived on your misery for centuries. If you are happy, if you are silent, if you are fulfilled, You will not go to their churches. You will not bow down to their priests. And you will not buy their cheap passports to a fictional heaven in the afterlife. You will become completely independent, a law unto yourself. This independence is what they are deeply afraid of, because it destroys their entire authority over humanity. They have called me a materialist, they have called me a dangerous man, and they have tried to ban me from entering their countries. But their fear simply shows their own absolute weakness. They have millions of priests, they have vast armies, they have nuclear weapons, and they have centuries of traditional conditioning behind them. And yet, they are terrified of a single unarmed man who has nothing but a direct, simple truth to share with people. They know perfectly well that all their doctrines are based on lies, and just a single ray of real light can shatter their entire structure of hypocrisy. Their prevention of me is nothing but an absolute acceptance of their own defeat. They have already lost the game. It is only a question of time before their old rotten world completely collapses. You need not be worried about their actions, and you need not lose hope for a single moment. Truth has an intrinsic authority of its own, an indefatigable power that can never be defeated by any political or religious force. It may take time, it may take generations for the new man to become a visible reality across the earth, but the revolution has already begun. You are part of this revolution. And just the capacity to visualize this new humanity, to feel its heartbeat within your own soul, is enough to transform your life right now. Do not look back at the dead past. Keep your eyes open to the rising sun. Remain flowing, remain natural, and let your life become a beautiful song of joy and freedom. Sit silently, do nothing, and wait for the spring. It comes, it always comes, and when it comes, your own inner grass will grow by itself, filling your entire being with the eternal fragrance of the Absolute. It contains both the lowest depths of the dark valleys and the highest, most luminous peaks of the sunlit mountains. Nature does not choose. It does not say that the peak is holy and the valley is a sin. The valley is necessary to support the peak, and the peak is nothing but the valley risen high to touch the stars. They are two aspects of the same indivisible reality. But the moment you look at yourself through the artificial eyes of your societal conditioning, you break this organic unity into pieces. You start fighting with your own depths. You start repressing your own roots. And then you wonder why your whole life has become a state of deep, painful anxiety. You are trying to stand on a peak without accepting the valley that holds it up. Your racing mind is not your enemy. It is simply a mechanism out of gear, spinning infinitely in the air because it has lost its organic connection to the ground. This connection to the ground is what I mean by returning to your natural self. When you sit silently, when you watch the chaos of your thoughts without any judgment or condemnation, you are simply allowing the wheel to slow down on its own momentum. You are not forcing it to stop, because any effort to force it to stop is just another game of the mind. The mind cannot stop the mind. The doer cannot create no mind. The cessation of the mind happens only when the doer is completely absent, when you are simply a non-interfering witness, watching the entire drama of your internal space with absolute indifference. If you can perceive this silent space expanding within your chest right now, if you can feel the heavy baggage of your old anxieties beginning to drop away just by listening to my voice, I invite you to share that beauty by leaving a reflection of your heart in the comment section below. Let your words be an authentic echo of your stillness, a testament to the presence you are experiencing in this very moment. When you choose to interact with this stream, when you like this recording and subscribe to our channel, you are not merely participating in a mechanical ritual of the digital marketplace. You are helping us to create an invisible global network of awareness. Your engagement signals to the noisy algorithms of the world that truth is valued, that silence is alive, and it allows this invitation of freedom to reach other weary travelers who are still drowning in the chaos of their own self-created madness. The greatest barrier on this path of inner exploration is the desire to become an expert. In the outside world, expertise pays. If you are an expert doctor, an expert engineer, or an expert technician, you are respected, you are rewarded, you are given a high position in the hierarchy of the society. But in the world of your inner being, the expert is the most dead phenomenon possible. An expert means one who knows already, one whose mind is full of past conclusions, answers, and information. The moment you think you know, your doors are closed, your windows are closed, and you lose the capacity to be surprised by the mystery of life. You become a rigid, dead thing, incapable of learning, incapable of flowing, and incapable of experiencing the fresh innocence of the present moment. To enter into the dimension of meditation, you must always remain an amateur. An amateur means one who does not know, one who looks upon everything with wide, innocent eyes, full of wonder, full of awe, and completely open to the unknown. A true meditator never becomes a knower. He remains an absolute ignorance, a clean, empty mirror that reflects the reality exactly as it is, without any pre-formulated theories or past memories. It is this innocence, this beautiful state of not knowing, that allows the divine to descend into your heart. This absolute unburdening of your inner space, this deep maps of the inner sky, are what we have explored and compiled for you within our extensive collection of digital ebooks. They are not meant to give you new doctrines to memorize or new words to decorate your head. They are designed to serve as a practical guide for your unconditioning, helping you to dismantle the heavy, structural patterns of your mind so that the virgin space of your being can be revealed. You can always immerse yourself in these treasures whenever your soul feels a deep longing to slide out of the clutches of the crowd. And if your heart feels a profound alignment with this work, if you wish to support the continuity of these daily streams and help us maintain this oasis of consciousness across the earth, you are always welcome to use the join button on your official interface to become an active pillar of our spiritual commune, or offer your love and gratitude through super thanks. Let your support be a spontaneous gesture of love, born out of your own freedom and intelligence, ensuring that these pathways of liberation remain freely available to every searching soul on this planet. You must realize that all your miseries, all your anxieties, and your constant feeling of going mad are created by a single phenomenon: your deep-seated habit of living through your thoughts rather than living through your being. Thoughts are like the noise of traffic on a busy road. Being is like the absolute silence of the mountain peak that stands far above the traffic. You have become so addicted to the noise that when the noise stops even for a single moment, you feel a strange restlessness, a deep boredom, as if you are losing your existence. But that boredom is simply the indication that you have been living a false, superficial life, a life made of others' opinions, others' values, and others' expectations. When you are alone, when the audience is removed, your false personality begins to fall apart, and behind it, you find nothing but a dark, terrifying void. To escape that void, you run back to the crowd, back to your businesses, your clubs, and your relationships, keeping yourself perpetually distracted so that you never have to look inside. This continuous escape from your own reality is what turns your life into a tragic nightmare. You are running away from your own home, and in that running, you are becoming more and more exhausted, more and more fragmented, Meditation is the sudden, revolutionary stop. It means you are no longer running away, you are no longer escaping into the past or into the future. You are simply standing right where you are, facing the reality of the moment with absolute nakedness. If there is boredom, you watch the boredom. If there is anxiety, you watch the anxiety. If there is a racing mind full of chaotic thoughts, you simply sit on the bank of the river and let the thoughts flow by without your cooperation. Your non-cooperation is the ultimate alchemy. When you do not give your energy to the mind through your identification, the mind naturally begins to lose its momentum. The traffic slows down, the intervals between thoughts become wider, and one day, suddenly, the whole mind disappears, and you find yourself in a state of absolute, profound silence. This state of no mind is your real home, and it is the only way to save your sanity in a world that has gone completely insane. Look at a child who has not yet been corrupted by the educational system of the society. He does not have a mind yet. His biocomputer is still empty, unprogrammed. He lives completely in his being, responding to each moment with absolute spontaneity. If he is happy, he laughs with his total being. His whole body vibrates with joy. If he is angry, he screams and throws his hands, expressing the anger totally. And the next moment, the anger is gone without leaving a single scratch on his soul, and he is back to his natural, smiling state. He does not hold on to anything, he does not hoard any memories, and he does not project any future. This spontaneity, this absolute innocence, is what you have lost because of your deep societal hypnosis. You have become so calculating, so robot-like, that your laughter is just an exercise of the lips, your love is just a cold, structural arrangement, and your whole life is nothing but a routine repetition of old habits. You are dead before your death, dragging a heavy corpse of yesterday on your back, wondering why your life feels so dark, so heavy, and so full of anguish. To break this mechanical trap, you do not need to fight with your habits. You do not need to struggle with your mind. If you fight, you are still using the mind. If you try to control it, you are still being the doer, and the doer can never go beyond the mind. The secret of meditation is a very relaxed, effortless watchfulness. You just sit silently, loosely, as if you are doing nothing at all, and let the mind do whatsoever it is doing. It is a machine. It will run for a while because of the past momentum that you have given to it through millions of lives. Let it run, let it chatter, let it throw all its rubbish into the open space. You just remain the watcher, an indifferent spectator, completely unconcerned with where the thoughts are going or why they are there. This indifferent watchfulness is what Buddha called upeksha, and it is the highest form of inner discipline. When you are a neutral witness, a magnificent unburdening happens naturally within your consciousness. You realize that you are separate from the machine, that the machine is just a functional tool around you, and that you are the timeless, unbounded space of pure awareness. This effortless awareness is not against action. It is not that you have to escape from the world and become a monk in a cave. My sannyas is a totally new vision. It means you live fully in the marketplace. You run your business. You look after your family. You enjoy all the beautiful gifts of the material world, but you remain completely untouched at your center, like a lotus flower that grows in the mud but remains absolutely pure above the water. You become a Zorba the Buddha, fully alive to the earthy pleasures of life and fully silent to the spiritual grandeur of the beyond. There is no conflict between the two, because matter is nothing but the visible form of the spirit, and spirit is nothing but the invisible essence of matter. When you live your life with this total holistic understanding, your ordinary actions become a form of dance. Your daily work becomes a beautiful prayer, and your entire existence becomes an unceasing celebration. Do not settle for anything less than this wholeness, because anything less than this is a form of slow, gradual suicide. Be natural, be spontaneous, be unique, and let your life blossom into its own intrinsic grandeur. This beautiful blooming of your inner space, this sudden shift from the mechanical chattering of the head to the deep, silent pulse of the heart, can happen in a single split second if your understanding is total. It does not require time, because time belongs to the mind. Time belongs to the horizontal line of more and more. The horizontal line is an illusion, like the horizon that appears a few miles away but recedes back as you approach it. You can run on the horizontal line for millions of lives, accumulating more wealth, more power, more knowledge, but you will always remain exactly at the same distance from your fulfillment. The distance never changes because the goal is illusory. Fulfillment is not at the end of the horizontal line. Fulfillment is a vertical drop into the present moment. It is a jump from the line of time into the dimension of eternity. When you are totally patient, when you are not looking for any results in the future, when you are completely satisfied to be here and now, the vertical door opens automatically, and you are flooded with an immense, uncaused bliss that has always been waiting for you inside your own interiority. But your mind is very tricky. It always wants to turn even meditation into a new goal for the future. The moment you experience a beautiful glimpse of silence or light during your sitting, the mind immediately jumps in and says, "This is magnificent. We must have more of it tomorrow. We must practice hard to keep it forever." And the moment greed enters, the moment the achieving motive comes back through the back door, the silence disappears instantly, and you are left again with a racing mind full of frustration and despair. You cannot possess meditation, you cannot hoard bliss, and you cannot make it a commodity of the marketplace. It is like a wild bird that comes to your window, sits there for a moment, sings a beautiful song, and then flies away into the open sky. You must be thankful for its coming. You must feel deep gratitude for the song it shared with you, but you must not try to catch it and put it in a cage. If you put it in a cage, it is no longer the same bird. It will lose its life, its beauty, its fragrance, and it will die inside your prison. Meditation can exist only in absolute freedom. It comes, and when it goes. You must let it go with a deep, silent thankfulness, without any complaint or demand for its return. This pristine innocence, this absolute freedom from the greed of the achieving mind, is what we have compiled for you in our extensive digital library of ebooks. They are prepared to serve as a deep cleansing process for your consciousness, helping you to recognize the hidden traps of spiritual ambition so that your journey remains authentic, pure, and completely unpolluted by the ego. You can always turn to these writings whenever your mind tries to turn your silence into a new decoration for its own pride. And if your being feels an overflowing gratitude for this oasis of consciousness, if you wish to stand with us in this rebellion against the old, dead values of a sick society, you are always welcome to support our work natively through your official interface. By hitting the join button to become a digital member of our commune, or by offering a spontaneous super thanks, you are directly facilitating the expansion of these maps of freedom to the ends of the earth. Let your participation be a conscious act of pure generosity, an expression of your own inner abundance. Always remember that life is a mystery to be lived, not a problem to be solved by the logical calculations of your brain cells. The mind loves problems because a problem gives it a job to do. It can think, it can analyze, it can argue, and it can feel very important. If there are no problems, the mind becomes completely useless. It has to go to sleep, and that is what it is terrified of. So whenever you solve one problem, the mind immediately creates 10 new problems out of the solution. just to keep itself active, just to keep you engaged in its illusions. It goes on telling you that you are sick, that you are a sinner, that you are ignorant, and that you must do something to put yourself right. But I tell you, you are already right. You have always been right from the very day of your birth. Your only disease is your unawareness, your deep sleep. You have simply forgotten who you are, and you are looking for your identity in the opinions of the crowd, in the mirrors of the marketplace. Drop all these false mirrors. They can only show you your masks. They can never show you your original face. To find your original face, you do not need to go anywhere. You do not need to do anything. You have only to stop. Stop completely and look within your own absolute aloneness. In that aloneness, you will realize that you are not a separate, miserable entity struggling for survival in a hostile universe. You are the universe itself, dancingly manifesting through a small, beautiful form. When this realization dawns upon you, all your conflicts disappear instantly. All your anxieties melt away, and you are filled with a profound, unshakable sanity that can never be disturbed by any storm of the outside world. You are healed, you are whole, and you are finally at home. This vast silent pulse of the entire cosmos is not something that you can capture or store within the narrow walls of your memory cells, for it is an alive, dynamic current that knows no stagnation. When you enter into the ultimate dimension of no mind, you realize that the observer and the observed have completely dissolved into one single undivided reality. You are no longer separate from the sky. You are no longer separate from the stars. And you are no longer separate from the ground you walk upon. This complete dissolution of all your boundaries is the highest peak of human sanity, the absolute health of your consciousness. But to remain established in this pristine space, you must completely drop the old, deep-seated habit of looking for external guidelines, rules, or authority. A man who has found his own center is entirely free. He does not need any map because he has become the very sky. If your soul can perceive this boundless freedom right now, if you can feel the hard, frozen architecture of your old ego completely melting into a beautiful stream of silent presence as you listen to my voice, I invite you to share that beauty by leaving a reflection of your heart in the comments section below. Let your words come out of your own deep experience of this stillness, and let us turn the comment space into a grand temple of shared consciousness. Your authentic expression serves as a beautiful beacon of light for other weary travelers who are still caught in the frantic, roaring traffic of their own racing minds. By hitting the like button, sharing this transmission of silence with those who are searching, and subscribing to our channel, you directly participate in our global revolution of consciousness. Your conscious interaction signals to the noisy, chaotic systems of the marketplace that truth is valued, that silence is alive, and it allows this beautiful invitation of freedom to reach the farthest corners of the earth. You must understand that the real work of a master is not to give you a new doctrine to believe in or a new philosophy to decorate your head, because all doctrines are nothing but cages made of words. The true master is a destroyer. He mercilessly demolishes all your comforting illusions, all your borrowed knowledge, and all your false identities until you are left completely naked, empty, and alone within your own interiority. This aloneness is not loneliness. Loneliness is a sick state of missing the other, a miserable dependency on the outside world for your value. Aloneness is a magnificent, positive state of complete self-fulfillment, a state of being so full of your own luminous presence that the entire universe feels at home within you. When you are truly alone, you are like a high mountain peak standing silent against the infinite sky, perfectly content in your own grandeur. To support this ongoing work of total unconditioning, to help us maintain and expand this oasis of silence across a world that is running faster and faster toward mass madness, your active participation is a beautiful necessity. If your being feels a profound alignment with our transmission, you are always invited to natively use the join button on your interface to become an active digital member of our spiritual commune, or offer your love and gratitude through super thanks to facilitate the continuity of these recordings. Your conscious support is not a business transaction. It is an act of pure generosity, a way of contributing to the awakening of human consciousness. Your support ensures that these maps of the inner sky remain freely available to every searching soul on this planet, helping them to drop their heavy burdens and find their way back home. When you are deeply established in your own aloneness, your relationship with the outside world is completely transformed. You continue to live your ordinary life, you run your business, you look after your family, but you are no longer acting out of greed, out of fear, or out of ambition. Your actions become an overflowing of your own inner abundance, a spontaneous gift of pure love to existence. You love not because you want to get something from the other, but simply because you have so much joy welling up inside your heart that you cannot contain it. You have to share it with the world. This love is the only true morality, the only authentic ethics. It does not follow any rules or commandments given by priests or politicians. It flows naturally out of your own silent awareness, bringing beauty and benediction to everything you touch. The ordinary human mind is deeply terrified of this spontaneous, unpredictable love, because the mind thrives only on calculations, contracts, and control. The society has transformed your natural love into a legal contract called marriage, turning a beautiful, fluid rose flower into a plastic decoration that can be easily managed, monitored, and controlled by the state and the church. Every marriage is stale, dead, and heavy because it forces two independent individuals to become frozen things, furniture in each other's houses, losing their fluid rhythm and their original faces. You demand permanence from that which is naturally changing, and through that very demand, you poison your love and create a living hell for yourself. Real love is like a real flower. It comes mysteriously out of the unknown, dances in the sun and the rain for a moment, and then disappears back into the cosmos. If you can accept this transience with deep gratitude, without any jealousy or possessiveness, your love will become your greatest meditation. This absolute freedom from the frozen patterns of the mind is what we have explored and beautifully articulated within our extensive digital library of ebooks, which we have prepared with great love for your inner journey. These books are not meant to burden your head with new theories, but to serve as a deep, mirror-like cleaning process, helping you to dismantle the heavy, structural conditionings of your past, so that the virgin space of your soul can be revealed. You can always turn to these treasures whenever your mind tries to turn your silence into a new decoration for its own ego, using them as a practical map to guide your steps back into the world of no mind. You must realize that the whole human past has been a grand history of deep psychological sickness, a collective pathology that has split man into two antagonistic parts, the body and the soul. Your religions have taught you to hate your own body, to look upon your natural instincts as sins, and to fight continuously against your own biology. They have praised the self-torturing ascetics, the people who starved themselves, who stood on beds of thorns, and who repressed their sexuality, calling them great saints and holy men. But to me, these people were simply mentally ill, masochists who took a perverted pleasure in pain, By teaching you to condemn your own roots, the religions have made you a house divided against itself, a fragmented, paralyzed entity incapable of any real joy or creativity. You cannot transcend your nature by fighting against it. You can transcend only by accepting it with deep love, by understanding its rhythm, and by allowing it to flower naturally. The body is your earth. The body is your shrine. The body contains all your hidden potential. It has lived for millions of years. It has a profound organic wisdom that is far older and more mature than your petty, late arriving logical mind. When you listen to the wisdom of your body, when you look after its natural needs with tenderness and care, the body becomes perfectly relaxed, calm, and quiet. It does not create any noise or disturbance. It does not demand your constant attention through sickness or tension. It becomes an absolutely quiet vehicle, a silent temple. And then you can take a jump into the boundless sky of your consciousness easily, without any resistance from your biology. To be a whole human being, you must heal this ancient split between body and soul. You must become a Zorba the Buddha, perfectly capable of enjoying all the beautiful material pleasures of the earth, and at the exact same time completely silent, serene, and dissolved in the ultimate grandeur of the spiritual beyond. This holistic vision of abundance and silence is why the powerful bureaucracies of the world, both political and religious, are so intensely terrified of my presence. They have built their empires on your misery, on your guilt, and on your deep psychological blindness. If you become a healthy, whole, and joyous human being, their entire authority over you will evaporate in a single moment. They want you to remain a poor, unalert, and obedient slave, a predictable cog in the wheel of their massive factory, so that they can continue to exploit you for their own power and profit. They have called me a materialist. They have called me an offender of truth, and they have jointly decided in their parliaments to ban me from landing at their airports, even for a simple overnight stay to refuel my jet plane. But their frantic fear simply shows their absolute impotence. They have all the nuclear weapons, all the armies, and centuries of traditional hypnosis behind them, and yet they are trembling before a single unarmed man who has nothing but a direct, simple truth to share with people. They have already accepted their defeat. Their old, rotten world is on the very verge of complete collapse. You should rejoice in this collapse, because the destruction of the old is the only way for the new man to be born across the earth. Do not let your old mind create new anxieties or new doubts about the future. The future is an empty space. It will take its shape out of your present awareness. If you can live this moment with absolute intensity, with absolute peace, and with an unceasing dance of joy, your future is bound to be a magnificent celebration. Do not look back at the graveyard of yesterday. Keep your eyes fixed on the rising sun. Remain fluid like water. Remain natural. And let your life become a beautiful song of absolute freedom. Sit silently, do nothing, and allow the spring to arrive. When the right moment comes, your own inner grass will grow by itself, filling your entire being with the eternal, unpolluted fragrance of the divine. Now, to fully understand how your vital energies have been systematically locked and how you can naturally break free from this collective hypnosis to activate your highest potential and live out of your authentic authority, you can easily access our magnificent ebook titled The Hidden Energy Protocol. Reclaim Your God Mode. Available right now through the link provided in the description below.